Okay, so now I'm going to do the first uh, practical thing that we're going to do in Photoshop, which is to retouch an old damaged photograph. So let's open up Photoshop. Now, older versions of Photoshop used to come with a library of images that you could use to try out various techniques. Now, they have since not stopped including those. So I'm going to do a search for um, what's called the Photoshop old image. I go to images. You can see the first one up there is the one I want. So I'm going to click on it, and then over here I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go back to Photoshop. I'm just going to say File and New. Now, recent items that I use, there's an A4 one that I did earlier on. It's default Photoshop size, and it's also got a reference to a thing called a clipboard. When you copy something on any computer, it is stored in a section of the computer memory called the clipboard, and it is just a slot dedicated to storing the copied thing. So if it's a piece of text, it's an image, it's a folder, it's whatever. When you copy it, that's where it goes. So the computer can, or Photoshop can detect that I've got something on the clipboard and I might want to use it. So you can see it's telling me that it's 400 by 600 pixels and it's 72 pixels per inch, which is the resolution. I'm going to create that. And there it is, empty page. I'm going to say edit and paste. And there's my image. So if I use the magnifying glass, I can click on it and it brings it closer. Or I can up here, do you remember I said in previous video, if you watched it, that whatever tool you have selected here, the options for it are up here, fit screen. So it makes it as tall as it can be on the screen. Now, just a little bit about resolution. When we made this, it offered me a clipboard at 72 pixels per inch. That image that I took off the internet is 72 pixels per inch. And by that I mean, so let's say imagine I've marked off an inch of it here. Let's say that's a square inch for argument's sake. It means that along the top here there are 72 individual pixels multiplied by 72 down that side. So every square inch has somewhere around the region of just under 5,000 pixels, which actually sounds like quite a lot, but it isn't. Pixels are just, if I zoom right the way in, all the way, you can see that this is basically a grid when you get right down to it. There's square one, looks like 100% white, maybe it's 10% gray, 25% gray, 32% gray, whatever it is. But all of those have to be recorded to for the Photoshop to display the image for you. The more pixels you have per inch, the finer the detail you can create, and the more the image stands up to being resized. Another way to think of resolution is an instruction to a printer as to how many dots of ink to print to make this image. The more dots you have, the finer the image is going to be, the finer the detail is going to be. But if you were to always work at 300 pixels per inch in terms of the files you generate, you couldn't really go wrong. That's a minimum standard for printing in a magazine or book. In a newspaper, it's probably closer to 150 because newspaper is absorbent. So when you print on it, the ink tends to spread a little bit. So you can't really get incredibly fine detail. So you get away with lower resolution. And for online stuff, any image that you download from the internet is probably going to be 72 pixels per inch. That's an agreed standard amongst internet. In the early days of the internet, they had to just define what is the minimum amount of pixels we're going to have per inch to show to people using it, and it still looked decent. So if you think about it, if you have a newish iPhone, that's got a resolution of over 300 pixels per inch on its screen. So it means that when you look at it, the text looks clean and it looks comparable to what you would see in a book. Anything below 300, your eye can start to detect the pixels a little bit. Okay, let's move on. So all we want to do is we want to repair this image, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this layer so as I have a fallback in a way. So if I mess up the other one, I'm going to say duplicate layer there, and go layer one copy, and I've got a spare one down there if I need to, and then this is the one I'm going to work on. So if anything goes wrong, I still have this one. You don't have to do that, but it's kind of one of those approaches that'll do you well. So I'm going to say use a thing called a spot healing brush, right? So I'm going to choose it there. If you can't see it, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tools down. Just hold the drawer open and you'll see spot healing brush if it's not already there. So a very quick demonstration. There's the circle there. That's my brush. And if I use the cursors or if I use the brackets beside the letter P on my keyboard, I can make the brush bigger or smaller. So I want to fix that damaged area there. And I'm going to make my brush relatively close in size. I click once and it's gone. So what it does, let's undo that, Control Z. Or sorry, Command Z on a Mac, Control Z on a PC. So there, what it does is, when I click that circle, it kind of says, right, the material around the outside of this, or just the inside of this circle, is different from this little white blob in the middle. Let's clone the outside of this into that circle. So it uses the material at the edge to copy into the center and delete it, or remove it, should I say. And I'm just going to do this. I go around and I getting all the big ones first, and it does a very good job of getting rid of this. Now I'm just doing this relatively quickly, but the one thing I'm not doing is this machine gun in the mouse. I'm just going to undo that a couple of steps. Control Z. Yeah, so you don't want to do that. You want to just be careful with it, because if you don't do that, you can end up it can end up being obvious that something has changed here. So I'm just going to keep doing this, and I might speed up this process from here on until I get to the end. Okay, so I think I've gotten rid of most of that, and all I'm doing is just using the cloning powers of this spot healing brush, and that's it. Very simple, but a very effective tool to use in Photoshop. And if you're stuck reproducing, if you missed that first class that we did, this is a good way for you to catch up on a very, very simple, basic element of Photoshop. Okay, next video is going to be about colorizing this image, so I'll leave it here for that. If you need to contact me about any of this, wmcdermott, 2 T's, at cdcfe.com. And if you have any suggestions for a tutorial video that you'd like me to make, if I can make it, I will. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. Thank you.